Woo, lordy lord. Hey, look who it is. Ain't
How
seen
are
you
you
in a minute,
tonight?
stranger. How you doing?
Plugging away?
Plugging away, that's what we do, right?
Yep,
Well,
like they say, wake up, grab your sword, charge, fight a little.
I have never ever heard that saying. I like that. Wake up, grab your sword. If this was
And
the
charge.
minute, if it was the Men in Trenches show, I would take that in a whole different light. But it's not. We're doing the secret how to fight CPS and win. I am not Vince Davis. I'm Darren Guay, and I'm here with my co-host Melissa Hara, and we are doing the secret. And the secret is we don't have a clue. So we're going to do the best we have with the tools that Mr. D left us, which is what you see is what you get. And we'll field you guys some questions, shoot the breeze for a little bit, see what we've got in some CPS news and some laws and some things and some stuff. But remember, we are not lawyers. We are just people that have had CPS dealings with that know a lot of shit. So without further ado, Melissa, what's going on?
Not much. I got notice of my court date today.
Oh boy. What did they do to you
Yeah.
now?
Oh, they put it all the way out in January.
Oh, nothing like the whole waiting process, right?
Well, so this will be rounding 2 years without even deeming the kids dependent, but yet the kids are out of home. So, being that I've now got this new judge, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to file a motion for more visitation, a motion to enforce that CPS do their job, and I'm going to file discovery. All things I could not get my attorney to do.
Well, that's that's the thing that's unfortunate is that it takes us being involved in these situations and not having a good attorney to represent us from the start. Like obviously, if you had Mr. Davis from the beginning, this wouldn't have been an issue. But with the situation you're in, you too had a paid for attorney, but they didn't seem to want to fight for your kids. It just leads you to wonder if all of these people, but Mr.
No,
Davis,
I
aren't.
had 3 paid for attorneys, and none of the 3 would do anything.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So I wonder. It baffles me that all of these attorneys, there's all of these big law books, the Black's Law. There's all of these things that tells us all this information about how the law is supposed to be held up, how it's supposed to be viewed, whether it's, upheld for the people, for the integrity of the court, all of this stuff. But yet none of these lawyers that fight CPS seem to want to use any of this stuff. Like they want to say, let's roll it forward. Let's not worry about this. We're not going to worry about this. Come on, we'll just get to this hearing. Or in your case, they
Right.
just keep rolling things off and keep I think for your situation, it's kind of like, let's just keep racking up the phone calls, Lord knows you know how to talk, and I'm sure that your phone calls are very thorough with these, attorneys. So I'll bet you every one of your phone calls are at least an hour, 2 hours, and they're charging you $700-800 a phone call. And what are you getting out of it besides nothing? Like you're getting a little education, but I don't think it's worth, that amount of money to come out of your pocket. So I don't know. I don't know what gives with these attorneys. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, at this point, I've kind of gotten to where, especially with court appointed attorneys, because they're bar none the laziest, unless you get a young one, like fresh out of law school, who's trying to prove themselves to the world. Those ones sometimes are pretty good, but for the most part, I found that when your attorney ain't doing their job, send either a certified or written, request of what you want done. And of course, you can't make it unreasonable. You do still have to keep it reasonable because some things are outside of their control. So that's what I've started doing. Anything I want done, I make sure I put it in an email, in a letter, in a text, in a something so that I have documentation. That way, like this last attorney that was like $40,000 for one hearing. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, if he wouldn't have followed through with what he was supposed to do, then at least I have proof, and then I could file a ineffective assistance of counsel, and I would have my proof going forward, which I could actually use at an appellate level.
I'm sorry. I'm just starting to the $40,000 for one hearing thing is just drilling through my head. I mean, that's just I can't believe that they can get away with this stuff, because what people are forgetting, of course, not people that are watching this, but on top of that money that you're spending, you still don't have your children, so there's that stress level of having that, and obviously all of us, we'll spend whatever we have to spend on the return of our children, but the other thing is, I think that there's a vulnerable level to all of us where we'll buy oceanfront property in Arizona. We'll go buy a piece of that bridge where there's no river, or, whatever that saying is. Um, because we are just want, we want any remedy to make sure our kids get home. There's these, I mean, how many arguments have you got into with the people that buy the $49.99, get your home remedy, get your kids home with the, get a private court and send this letter and do this stuff. And you've tried it. I mean, I know I have, there are things that I've tried, and,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
seems legit, like you want it because you just want your kids back.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
it,
legal
like,
blackmail.
right. Exactly. Is exactly it. And this, what they're doing, the lawyers, a lot of them, number one, they're not winning like Mr. Davis. And
No,
number two, they're just like, what was the reason? Why on earth would they want to continue your case that's already been 2 years out with your kids out in the home and all of this? Why would they want to continue it? That doesn't fit what the protocol recommends or requires. So why would they do this other than the fact of break some more money out of Melissa? Let's see how much more we can get. Like, I mean,
well,
unless
and
you
I
think
think
something
that's what
different.
they're trying to do. They're trying to see if they could exhaust all of my financial ability, and that maybe I'll just turn and walk away. Because, see, in the beginning, they would file a new motion against me every couple of days, and they figured if they threw
Uh-huh.
so much paperwork at me, I would abandon my kids. Now it's
Right.
let's make her exhaust every penny she has, and then she'll abandon her kids. Well, from the 500 attorneys I've spoke with over the last 2 years, and the people that I've met through this show, through our friendship, through looking around, through TikTok, through Facebook, I've now come up with enough information that, you know what? My case is already broken. My judge was already trying to give the kids away before I got the equivocal of a mistrial. And now I get a new judge to hear it. So my case is already broken. I can't break it. They've already
Right.
made me look as bad as they can. Therefore, I might as well go in and put up the best argument I can. If I
Right.
make the judge mad and he arrests me for contempt, so be it. It'll be for the purpose of fighting for my kids, not sitting
Yeah.
there being quiet.
Yep, and your kids aren't going to sit back and say, "My mom didn't do anything to try to get me." Like that's certainly, I know that that's a big part of it for me. Like I make as much noise as I can because God forbid that things don't work out. I don't want my child to ever look back and say, feel that feeling of like we've just disappeared as parents. No way. As long as I'm breathing, I'll be fighting. And that's going to be that. So, they've already have exhausted a lot of things. But you know what? There's always more. We can always make more money. We can always make more people, make more friends, make more acquaintances to build this fight up, to make this fight go our way. Like that's just the reality of this. I mean, granted, they have an unlimited budget, but you know what? We have unlimited heart. They have our kids, and that that right there should outweigh the financial power that they have, because heart goes a hell of a lot stronger than the power of the dollar. um, and you know what? Eventually, we're going to find someone that's going to come along that has deep pockets, that have been watching us long enough. We're going to get that break for this movement. The person that can reach down in their pockets and go not toe to toe with these people, but someone's going to come along and give us some relief, because it's tiresome. It's tiresome for all of us that have been doing this for years. I mean, you've been at it for a lot of
Well, and
years.
that's why I say pick up, you grab your sword and you charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a battle, because even when you're not in court fighting them, you're still fighting them in your head, figuring out the next move. It's a chess game. It really is. You got to
Mm-hmm.
think 3 moves ahead. And if they may do this, what can you do to make sure that they don't before you ever get to that point? What I found
Mm-hmm.
was reading their handbook, because you can always get their handbooks off the internet. You just
Yeah.
Google your local DHR and type the word PDF behind it, and you can get their, abuse and neglect procedures book.
Yep.
And I was able to tell my attorneys 2 months before they did it exactly what they was going to try to do, what state statutes they was going to use. And my attorneys are like, Melissa, you don't know what you're talking about. They don't behave like that down here. You're crazy.
Yeah.
I actually had an attorney come to me and apologize. They're like, wow, we've never in our history of being an attorney seen a court behave in this fashion. I said, well, I've seen it once before and it didn't end well.
My favorite is this. I'm sure you've heard it. Melissa, you're misinterpreting the law and how it's written and what it means. It's two different things. You don't understand what this stuff is saying. Well, it's English. It's written right here. The words are the words. The nouns are the nouns.
Hell, even if it's Latin, I got a dictionary.
Right, exactly. Or we got Alexa, or we got anything that we need. So I don't think it, but I think that's their cop out for these people to try to jerk you off of your trail of, I would think that the attorney's court appointed or not, dollar signs. Now, one, if they have experience and they're going to guide you. Mr. Davis talks about strategy all the time. And I know we don't know what's going on because we're not lawyers. So I know that there's a big part, like Mr. Davis says, is the strategy thing. We don't know. But I'm going to assume, I'm going to go out here and make an assumption that if Mr. Davis was my lawyer and he does have a strategy, that he's going to explain to me his strategy and allow me to understand his strategy so that we can now discuss maybe needs or wants or things that I have that I would like to have him implement in his strategy. And if he feels that they're not necessary or they're not adequate, then he will explain to me why. I would think that that's part of a great attorney, in these situations. I know I've heard him talk about, doing those things before. And I think that would be great. But with these court appointed attorneys and with, the overnight fly by night, these type of guys, they're not explaining anything. They're telling you no. Like for my instance, when they dropped my visitation, I knew full well that all the state statutes, everything that was against it said the only person that can stop a visitation with my daughter is a judge. A judge had to make that decision. But yet it wasn't made by a judge. It was made by 6 awful ladies that were totally against me in my case. And they said no more. And that was it. And that's what my attorney went with. He said over and over, it was going to take too long. It's going to do this and that. And I fought and I fought and I fought with this guy to do this. And even my wife's attorney I fought with about this. I'm like, please, someone help me get my visitations back. And you know
right.
what? They never
Absolutely.
did. They just didn't do it. And then you know what? Again, when they don't do these things, bites you in the ass when you get to the TPR. Guess what? Well, you never fought. You never did anything to try to, remedy this, get your daughter back. You never tried to do it. The hell I didn't. You know what I mean? I have thousands and thousands. I never communicated with anybody but email. That was it. After my first day of talking to them and doing these things, I didn't do anything but on email. I never spoke on the phone to a single one of them. Anything they had to say, email me. And I even went so far as to carbon copy it to someone else that had nothing to do with anything. Like a stranger neighbor of mine or something, that they had no ties, no nothing to me, but they were getting the information too. Just so if I had to say, look, this random person's getting my information to show that it's true, this is facts, like that was my own quirky little thing that I thought of. But, it's not going without trying. And these people just aren't trying to do. I know that I don't know what I'm doing. Again, I'll say it for the 28th millionth time. I'm not a lawyer. Do I study law books? Do I read all this stuff? Sure do. Do I have the experience, though, that like Mr. Davis has? Absolutely not. What experience do I have? I have my experience. And then I have the experience of a bunch of other people that I have talked to over this 2 years that I've been fighting this fight. But
right. Absolutely.
These attorneys, right. So these, on the show I do in the morning, Hunting Justice, I implemented a thing today where, because I don't want to talk about the stories on Hunting Justice, like like, let's tell our story, let's take it apart, let's, do this like we're all doing. So what I want is answers. I want to talk about what are situations that people have had, that they've experienced, that they've won, or what are situations that people have run into that they want to make sure that they warn you, say, don't do this because it will lead you, to be demised. So what we said is, I want to do this when someone comes on the show and it comes up on the comments, whoever has a problem, whoever lists it first. Haven't figured out how we're going to do this yet, but then everybody can chime in on this person's case, what information they have that is similar, because all of us have similar situations, you know.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah, there's very little different between all of our cases, especially
uh
nowadays. Now that
right.
they're, a friend of my friend Kim, she had a parent call her yesterday. They took the baby at birth, day before yesterday, and it was because the baby had drugs in its system. And the drugs was actually the woman's anti-seizure medicine. Yeah, but it
Yep.
was still grounds. It was still grounds for removal. They said it didn't matter. The baby was under the influence of a drug and was having withdrawal issues.
That's
So the mom can either take her medicine and the baby is born healthy, or the mom cannot take her medicine, and every time she has a seizure,
yeah,
she has
almost died.
to worry whether she's cutting blood flow off to the child, and then the child may die. But if you
Right.
take your medication like you're supposed to, we'll take your child and call you a bad parent.
Yep. And
That's
we're
some
going to
screwed up crap.
no judge, no jury, no nothing. Just we get to take your parent. I heard you talking earlier on your show about implementing the police officers. And I'm sorry, I'm looking for something that I wanted to read, but I'm in the studio's a mess because I decided to switch things around. So I apologize for my bumbling. But I heard you talking about implementing police to field these calls instead of CPS agents. I know I've heard a little bit about it, but what are you hearing about this, and what do you think about it?
Well, Texas just passed it as a law literally like within the last 2 to 3 weeks. Now if someone's gonna call CPS on you, when they dial that 800 number, it routes you back to 911, and they will send out an officer to make a initial assessment to see if it meets the burden of proof, because they're getting so many false calls. If you're making a false call, because there's no more anonymous calls either in Texas. um you have to give a name, you have to give a number, and it's the initial investigator is a police officer. So if there's no emergency, now they will come back and criminally charge you for filing a false report.
I
And they're
hope that
getting ready to implement that in Florida, along with Florida has already started changing their mandated reporter laws because too many hospitals were making bad reports. And I know there was just a lawsuit a couple months ago that settled for something like 6.2 million over a wrongful termination off of a wrong off of an improper medical call.
yeah, is that I mean, how much of that is I don't know, but I wonder how much of the HIPAA laws are being affected by these call-ins or these mandated rules. Like how many, like there's not supposed to be a lot of disclosure of your well, this is why I need to find this paper. There's not supposed to be a lot of disclosure, about your medical situations, but how come they're able to use this under substance abuse or, all of these allegations? They're able to break the HIPAA rules. They're able to steal your kids. They're able to bring police involved. Like they're able to bring so much involved in just a
Well,
hearsay
actually, I can
situation.
answer that one for you
Perfect.
because
That's why I asked you.
my ex-husband was a doctor and I worked with him in the medical field.
Hmm.
So, yes, HEPA has a lot of strong rules, but if you actually go through all of the HEPA rules, if there is a deemed danger emergency
Right.
to a patient, there is a open window that a small amount of information can be given,
Right.
and
No, I
it
read that
typically
today
has
actually.
to come from the social worker, not just the doctor, but typically the social worker from the hospital is supposed to do like all the information gathering to see if it meets the burden of proof. and then she's supposed to turn it over to CPS, but that's not how it's been working. Oh, your kid walks funny? Well, maybe it's because they have a club foot. Well, that must be an abuse thing. Let's hurry up and, ship their kid off to the next highest buyer.
Yeah, that's what they that's the other thing people need to get in their head too, that this isn't just about the family unit and them destroying the family unit. There's much more than that. This is about dollar signs on our children, not only on our children, but on a lot of the other, and I don't want to get gruesome with this, but there's a lot of bad things that are happening in this world. And a lot of fingers are pointing to, well, for instance, I will use this statistic as a have been, and this came from the United Nations. 82% of the children that are being trafficked from the United States that they have had access to, the United Nations in this collection of data, have had some sort of a tie to CPS.
Yes.
82%. So that only 18%
absolutely.
of the rest, 18% of the people that are being, or the children that are being trafficked from the United States. Not that this is a good or low number, but think about it. So if we didn't have CPS, how much human trafficking would really be going on through the United States, or children trafficking, any of this stuff? How much would really be happening if CPS wasn't? So it seems to me that there's a lot of, usually you have to take the good with the bad in a lot of situations, right? Like you got to be like, this ways outweighs this. But at what point does one life supersede that of millions?
Right.
Because I know it's easy to say, if you save one child, but in that wake of saving one child, you have destroyed millions of lives. And I say millions because of the amount of people that are infiltrated by CPS. And then that goes into those family values and those roots. And as far as that child's name goes, is how far CPS infiltrated, if you understand what I'm saying there. Anybody that says my daughter's name out of their mouth is a person that was affected by CPS. I guarantee you that we beat the 6 degrees of separation rule, like the Kevin Bacon thing. I bet you it's only on 2 or 3 degrees of separation before finding somebody that's being involved or has been involved some way or another with CPS. So CPS is in essence trying to be amazing for the child units, but they're destroying our family heritage in the United States. So what do?
We stand up, we fight as a family.
Thank you.
We don't let them divide us.
But how? Like, where are we? We're all about action steps. You know that. Our little crew, we're trying to make moves to be about action. Don't talk about it, be about it. But what is it? Do we not give up our kids? Is that what we're trying to say here? Like, do we, I've said for a long time, the basics to everything is don't let them in your door. Don't talk to them. Contact your lawyer. Tell them to leave. Don't let your kids talk to them. If you can at least keep your kids away from them and you away from contact with them, then you're winning. Because the second that you can get them to engage with you and give them access to your life and your children, that slope starts to twist, and now they're playing the game, and they're winning the game. Once they get contact and once they engage, they definitely are winning. 12% chance of reunification when you break the numbers down. That's not very good.
Now, see, the way they did me, because my daughter was doing counseling, we went in just for routine, stereotypical, the meeting that we always go to, and we've always went to it as a family, no big deal. They've not pulled anything shady. And we get in there, and all of a sudden, in walks a whole shit ton of cops. No police order, no judge's order, no nothing. Just, hey, you two can leave and you ain't taking your kids with you.
That's sickening. Pure done through intimidation. Colette, I'm going to say this to you. Go Pats. I know it's been a rough time, but go Pats. I don't know what you're doing up here, Colette, but you know what? Brian Seaver I think that was his name, Brian Seaver. I know it's Attorney Seaver, and I'm pretty sure it's that. But I don't know if you saw him or if you went to Mr. Davis's seminar. He's a lawyer out of Boston. Grace, it's Brian Seaver, right? He's the attorney out of Boston. He's amazing, and he's like he's a no fool around type guy. So Colette, if you're looking, Kevin, yes, thank you, Colette. So I apologize Brian, not Brian, to Kevin. So you obviously know who he is. So that's awesome. Yes. I've been able to talk to him a couple of times, and that guy's full force, head on. He's definitely no chickadee. Um, but apparently you know about him, so that's good. I don't get to see people up here very often. Colette is only 45 minutes from me, Melissa.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we don't usually see people on this show that are from this area. So I'm glad that we're stretching the boundaries. It seems Jesus. It seems like Alabama has a good pot of people watching this stuff. You seem to be able to do quite a draw, Melissa.
Yeah. No, you see that my friend Kim's on here.
Yeah, I seen Kim and I saw another one. Call it. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try to get in touch for him for you. How's that? Why don't you email Grace your information and I'll get in touch with Kevin and I'll see if I can push that along for you. Um,
Well, one of the things that they've been doing in Alabama to try to maximize the amount of money they make off each kid, they
mhm.
like it when the kids run away and then they could re-put them in the system because every time a kid goes in the system, they're issued a jacket number on their folder. If
Yep.
the kid leaves the system and comes back, they issue a new jacket number.
Yeah, of
So it's like a
course.
whole new case.
Yep.
Like my
That's why
daughter's
they
been
give.
out of there for a year and they've been collecting money on her all year. They're getting her Social Security fund, everything. She ain't even in the state. She's married.
Well, that's what you know. What that's why I hate it. It's so cruel that they do this. But you see these parents, and I hate. I don't want to be like this, but you're like, how did they get their kids back? How are they getting their kids back? But unfortunately, just like you're saying, that it's only a matter of time. They give them back to them for 1 or 2 months, then they remove them from the house. They keep doing that to them because, like you're saying, they're maximizing their dollars off of these people. They're getting more money. They're starting cases over. I've seen a couple cases where the people got their kids back for a year, and then everything looked, and then all of a sudden, bang, here they come back again, and then they do it again, and they do it a couple of times. Uh,
Oh
it's
yeah, once you're in their
sickening.
radar, you're screwed.
Yeah, it really does suck. It really does. And I never see I grew up, I never had anything to do with the system. I didn't know about CPS. What I knew about CPS was yay, they're saving the world, man. They're saving America's children, like I had no idea. I had not the bit of knowledge that CPS was such an evil entity of blood sucking varmints. I really didn't. And that's the honest to God truth. Up until the point that this happened to me, I was one of those people that, I would listen to for a second about CPS, but in my back of my mind, I'm like, boy, they must have done something awful. They must be, and it would be like Charlie Brown to me, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not even listening to them, um, because I thought that America was America. America was about justice, freedom fighters doing the right thing and all that. And I'm so disappointed after being here on this earth for 45 years to actually have to see what the true testament of this country and the people that run it are. And you know what it is? It's kidnapping.
Yeah.
It is kidnapping. This country is based on stealing children and trafficking them for not only themselves, but for science, for parts, for all of this stuff. All you have to do is take a look at your checkbook for each individual state and go ahead and match up the amount of money that comes into your state from the Title IV funding or any of the funds. I mean, there's a lot of other funds out there. It's not just Title IV. There's a lot of other little bonus and checks things. See how much DHHS is taking in your state each month or each year and what they're getting. And also take a look at the number of open checks that they have. Like Maine has a $3 million open payment to any primary care doctor or primary care physician, PCPs, if they feel that they want to donate some money to their offices, they're able to without any sort of question or not. So I'm assuming that there might be a couple of doctor offices here in Maine that have a little higher report level than some other doctors' offices might if the children are brought there to be checked over, or maybe psychologist offices, or these things. Um, God, I keep coming up with this other number too in my head, and I lose it as soon as I want to say it to you. Look at Here's the other thing is look up your state's numbers and see how much they've increased the amount of intakes. Now, if we're dumping these millions of dollars, billions, almost trillions of dollars into reunification services, get yourself better services, all of this stuff, then how come the number of kids that are going into custody is still rising? Why is it not going down? Isn't that the whole idea behind all of this? Is to keep the family together? They're pouring more money into reunification, more money into the family unit, more money into rehabilitation, all of that stuff. But they do exactly the opposite on all of it. Like
Well,
what
I
the
mean,
hell?
the Social Security Administration and Medicaid don't know that they ain't doing more to reunify. The payment system was set up to pay to reunify. It's just all the crooks of the world have figured out how to manipulate that into their pocket as good as they can.
I know.
Because honestly, if you look at the numbers before 2020, before COVID, it was about 1,400 children a day would go into care. Since COVID, it is up over 2,200 children a day. There's only 10,000 children born in a day. So we're at
An eighth or something, or
literally 22,
two-tenths.
24% of the kids born every day end up in care. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's disgusting. But check this out, right? So this here, just so everybody knows, it's not malarkey, it's not BS. This here is writings from the Government Oversight Committee. All right. This is a Child Protective Service investigation for the state of Maine. I want everybody to pay attention to this in your own state's legislation because they snuck this thing in here. I thought I had the right page here. Hold on a second. They snuck this in. I never paid attention to this rule, or maybe I didn't even care because I didn't know about what CPS was about or anything. But it goes in to be with the terms and how your state looks at what determines the level of evidence and everything. But so this says statutory changes and other legislative actions. In 2018, the Maine legislature enacted a governor's bill amending the Child and Family Services and Child Protection Act in a way that reflected a desired shift in priority given to family preservation as an outcome. Specifically, the bill removed the language, give family rehabilitation and reunification priority, and replaced it with require that reasonable efforts be made to rehabilitate and reunify families. So they took a solid piece of legislature. I mean, that says right there, give family rehabilitation and reunification priority. I mean, you can't argue that, right? Like you do everything that you can. And they changed the wording so it says require that reasonable efforts. It's just like imminent danger, right? So
Yeah,
now they get to
exactly.
decide. Now they get to decide what the reasonable efforts are. What are the reasonable efforts are? Because guess what? I did everything in my safety plan. I even had a counselor come out and say there's no problems, no this, no that. The counselor that they gave me, and then they scrutinized on the stand. And I'm sure I'm not the only one out here that they've done this to. I'm guarantee I'm not. So where is their reunification? Where is it?
Well,
4%?
Alabama did a similar thing a few years back where they made the bond with the foster parent almost greater than the bond with the parent. If your kid's in care greater than a year, in other states, that'd be grounds to get them back if they hadn't adjudicated. In this state, it's all the more reason to argue the foster parent has a stronger bond with your kid than you do. Therefore, the less reason you need them back.
So here's this. Check this out. Title 4E of the Federal Social Security Act has required states to make reasonable efforts to preserve families, to prevent or eliminate the need for removing child from their home, and to make it possible for a child to safely return home and reunify with their family. In the 1990s, language was added to Title 4E through the adoption of the Safe Families Act of 1997 that still required that same reasonable efforts be made, but additionally specified that the child's health and safety was a paramount concern. Maine law is similar, with Maine Child and Family Services and Child Protection Act requiring that children be from the custody of their parents only where failure to do so would jeopardize their health or welfare. The Act also identifies family rehabilitation and reunification as means for protecting the welfare of the child. Does that sound like anything any of us are getting from CPS?
Well,
Are we
no,
getting that commitment?
no.
Is reunification, does anybody that's listening to us or watching this feel that reunification is the actual goal? When they tell you, I mean, do you even feel like that's the truth when they bring those words up to you? When they say, hey, Melissa, I'm still letting you know reunification is the goal here. You don't feel that. You feel like you're squandering. You know damn well reunification is not their goal. You're just treading water. You're trying to stay on board with this thing as long as you can. And this is the words that are coming from the oversight and the accountability committees. So there
Well,
are people watching and
in
saying
my
that this stuff
case,
is wrong. They're telling these people that they're wrong, but why is nobody doing anything about it?
during the time that reunification could have been considered the goal, during the hearings, they said, well, the family needs no services. The family needs no services. And now they're asking that adoption be the goal, but yet they've not even deemed my kids dependent yet. So literally, they're babysitting my kids on expired paperwork, and there ain't a damn thing I can do about it unless I want to go to jail.
Well, maybe that's what it's going to take. Maybe it's going to take. I want to read this to you. I wish we had a little poll on here that we could put, because I would love to find out this. What child abuse and neglect is not. Again, same book, Accountability Office, right? What child abuse and neglect is not. Some situations may indicate that a family or a child needs community services or support, but do not meet the definition of child abuse or neglect. Examples include living in poverty, including lack of food, clothing, or shelter that is not injurious to the child, accidental injuries, even if regular and reoccurring, parental prenatal substance use, physical or mental impairment of the parent, including substance use if it has little or no impact on the child, isolated incidents of domestic violence when the child was not present, physical discipline like spanking as long as it does not cause bodily injury. How many people can fit this right here, that they were founded of abuse and neglect? And it was one of these reasons here. So I know you got 50% right here.
I wished I could say mine was at least one of those reasons. At least then I'd feel like I could say I'm guilty of something. But, when you hear CPS testify that there's zero allegations against you, and the judge turns around, looks at you, and says, well, we're going to make adoption the placement.
Yeah.
But, Your Honor, there's no allegation. So why the hell are we here?
Yep. Mine's the same thing. There was nothing against my child at all. I had allegedly been involved in an incident, an alleged armed robbery, which wasn't an armed robbery. It wasn't any of that. It all was dismissed by the state. That was it. That was what was against me for my child. It had nothing to do with my child. It wasn't an armed robbery. It wasn't anywhere near that. It wasn't anywhere near what they made it out to play it. But a small town in Maine that has nothing else to do in reporting, turns a little incident, an isolated incident of actually we were doing the right thing in the end, that it turns out. But that was it. That's what they came after my child. That was it. That's what brought CPS. That's what took everything. And at the end, that's why they TPR'd me. Because you know what they did? The judge used her adverse inferences after all of the questions, 157 of them, in 3.5 hours on the stand of me pleading the fifth, because my case hadn't gone through yet, my criminal case, which is another thing, that they shouldn't be running your CPS case and your criminal case concurrent, because they should be waiting until they get founded on your criminal side before they can substantiate you. At least that's what the rules say in the state of Maine.
Right.
They don't follow that
I
either.
I agree with what Kim just said. You know, they got involved in her life because she threatened malpractice
Yeah,
on a hospital. So the hospital turned around and made a false report on her because she was
yep,
trying to be a good parent.
yep.
And I find that nowadays more children are getting taken because the parents approach them wanting counseling for their kid, and they don't have enough private insurance to cover the counseling. And
Well, it's not
these
even.
places are supposed to be able to voluntarily help us if we need help.
What about these parents that are seeking help, and they swoop in and take their kids from them because they're seeking help? How about that? You want to talk
Hello,
about
I'm
a kick
one of
in the
them.
dink? Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's ridiculous. What great way to have all of this money to help rehabilitate people with issues and then scare the hell out of them so that they don't use it, so they can just sit there and open in these checks into their pockets. I want to go back to the checkbook thing. Pay attention, people. Pay attention to how your budget's balanced in your state. Look at the amount of children that are brought into your state's care or into the care of CPS, and watch how your balance, your budget goes from a negative side or whatever, and nothing's changed other than the amount of kids that are being brought in to the system. They're balancing budgets off of children being removed from homes and put into the system.
Right,
This is not
right.
BS. This is not conspiracy. I'm giving you sources that you can look at yourself. I'm not saying you got to get on black box websites, the dark web, any of that. You can go right to your own. They put this right in your face. I mean, this stuff is, you can get it. Look for it. I mean, it's not a
Yeah,
secret.
it's all available under the
You know?
transparency laws.
So, I mean, all this stuff is out there. You just need to educate. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate everybody so that we can get more people to get loud about this. Um, we have to. And people like Mr. Davis, you know what? He's awesome for giving us this platform to use, for giving us his name to use to get out there and to reach more people than we'd possibly be able to on our own. The guy's amazing for that. Not to mention the work that he does with, lawyering for these families. But, just for him to do this for us and allow us. I mean, I've been watching him for a while, and I really thank him for putting trust in me and trust in you to take his show. I mean, before we were around and with him, and Miss G was with him, like she would take maybe one show once in a while, but if he wasn't around, he didn't trust anybody. So I thank him for having the trust in us and allowing us to be here tonight and take his spot. It's really a huge thing. And
Right.
it just shows,
Well, and he's
the guy and
also,
the faith he has.
he's a great attorney, honestly, to do the consults with. Yes, it's a paid consult, but he at least answers the question. He looks at a little bit of your case and he helps you figure out a strategy. And like he always says, if you've called 5 attorneys, call 50 more.
Yep.
And I kind of utilized that theory when I heard it from him a year ago. I started calling every single attorney in my state, and I looked for the best ones first, because if I can get 2 to 3 questions answered by each one, then I know which questions that ask the next one,
Right.
until I finally start asking the right questions. And the one thing I definitely figured out, true hardcore, don't ever hire an attorney that makes you a promise.
Huh.
Because if
What
an
is
attorney says, oh, yeah, that's no big deal, I'll have them back in 2 days. Yeah, that's the
what
attorney that don't do nothing.
what is the number one question that you ask attorneys? What is the number one question that you would say to everybody? Be sure to ask when you're seeking a lawyer and their assistance.
One, ask them if they specialize in CPS cases, not just family cases, because it's not a divorce. This is CPS. This is different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's first and foremost, because your bodily injury attorney may not be too good at fighting CPS. The other one is, ask them when you walk in the door, hey, are you willing to file a discovery so that we know what they're using against us?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the one thing I have not been able to get any of my previous attorneys to file. And I had a worker come to me and tell me that everything I need to beat my entire case is in my file. And
And that's a law.
I have
That's a law
told
that they
this
have to give you
to
that.
the attorneys. Well, they have to give it to you if you file for it. But
Right.
see, in our state, you got to ask the right questions when filing for it. Alabama makes it very hard to get discovery.
Really? How so? How do they, I know that they all manipulate and play games with it. But how so do
Well,
you mean
like
they're,
in Texas, all you have to do is say, I want discovery, I want certified documents, I want certified affidavits of notes. And you kind of really, you can leave it at that. There's only 3 points to argue, and then you're done. Texas will give it to you. In Alabama, you have to give a scenario as to why you want which note, what, when, how, each record. And you have to have sufficient reason for each and everything you're requesting. You can't just say, hey, I want to know, I want to face my accuser. You got to tell them everything but the guy's shoe size to be able to justify getting those documents.
yeah, it's called, I'm trying to think. There's something it's called in Maine. It's got a name, and I believe that they use the name in a lot of other states. This is where, honey, do you remember the name? I might ask my wife, she remembers. There's a name for this, to ask for the discovery. It's called a something rule. It's called a, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I even just brought this. I thought it was going to pop right up when I asked it for here. Um, Bradford. Oh man, hold on. Let me pace my brain. Melissa, keep talking for a second while I pace my brain. I'm trying to remember this. I'm trying to remember the name of this. It's like Brady or Bar.
So Kim just
Um,
put in, she says, Alabama CPS actually made a policy October of 22 that they lost a lawsuit in regards to obtaining CPS records, making the ability to get CPS records at least 10 times harder, so that even an attorney who knows to ask the right questions is going to have difficult time getting the discovery. But they did it with the intent to keep former foster children from getting their records, so that they would not be able to sue CPS for the things that they did to the children. Because truthfully, children do have the right to go back and sue CPS for the abuse.
oh my gosh, I'm such a. I
You're
can't believe
still
I'm
brain
having such a
farting, aren't
brain.
you?
I am so, yes. I'm trying to, because it's called this in any other state, and it's the, I have the whole printout of the rules. I'm not in my other office right now. Man, it's, oh, this is gonna drive me insane. It's
Well, it's important. That's why you can't remember it.
right. I need to remember. I keep wanting to say it's the Brady, but it's not the Brady. You know what? Hold on a minute. Let me look in one of my many main law books here. Discovery, like Melissa's talking about, is very huge. You know what? Write down everything, guys. Take little books. Like I take
Yes,
books like
write
these.
down
I
everything,
got these. I have
record,
novels.
document.
Mm-hmm.
You
I got
can never
novels.
have too much documentation when dealing with CPS. And
Yep.
if you have to deal with the worker, do it by text message, by email. If you're going to do it by phone call, put a recording app on your phone. And everyone says, oh, recording laws, recording laws. You know what? You're the consenting party to your own phone conversation. And if CPS don't like it, what are they going to do? Go to the judge and say, she recorded me. They record you while you're in visiting with kids in their facility. They have you on
Mm-hmm.
camera. They have you on sound. They're just waiting for you to say one wrong thing.
Yep. And that's why, the great idea for them would be to wear body cameras. Why would they not wear body cameras? Why would they not? Because they don't want to get caught up in doing things that they're not supposed to do, saying these things that we all know that they say. Um, it's just asinine. It's ridiculous, and it makes so much sense that that's why they don't do it. I mean, come on,
Right.
people. So in this coming election, why don't you talk to your, like with our march to Washington that we have here? Why don't you start talking to your local representatives and seeing if you can start implementing with them that your caseworkers wear body cameras. Find out which local legislators and senators and House of Representatives people will fight for that and put that in a ballot of some way to get them to advocate for body cameras. I mean, that's a great way, a simple way to use the election and your local politicians to work for you in this way. And you tell them, hey,
Right.
you're not going to go ahead and do this. Well, then I got a whole slew of voters that aren't working for you. Use the power of the vote, people. We are the people. So let's show these people again what the power of the vote and the power of a mass amounts of us in a cause can do to make change. That's Mr. Davis's whole concept with getting the team captains, with all of these things. Which again, we'll have some information this week coming out about that. I know that it seems like we haven't been doing much, but it's a lot of work to try to organize this thing as quickly as we have. Um, so we will be getting you that
Well,
stuff.
and like Kim just said, there's enough case law out there supporting that we can record government employees. CPS
Of
acts
course,
as a government agency,
the second
and
they take a job from the government, they put themselves under scrutiny of the American
right.
people. It's our job to be able to
Yep.
check and balance them. They're our employees. Like that's the facts. Um, Man, I can't believe that I can't remember this. You know what? And as soon as we're done the show, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, it's the,"
Of course.
you know. You know what else is
Well,
great
maybe
is what is it? I know that
maybe
every state has.
while you're brain farting, if anyone has any questions, they can throw it up in the comment section, and we'll try to answer them since we're down to the last 2 minutes. Well, while you're
Wiring
stuck
out,
on
yes.
mental pause over there.
The wondrous amount of evidence. Um, you know what else too? Wait, I might just CAPTA. COCF fund adoptions. Wow, it's really crazy. You know what's nice is you can go back and look through all your notes when you do this and be like, oh my gosh, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Like this
Oh
here.
yeah, I'm
Look at
sure
this.
between me and you both, I'm sure we've looked every law up at least 10 times, printed
Yep.
it out, highlighted it 3 times, and lost it twice as many.
Except for this rule that I'm looking for the discovery. That I
Right?
can't find. And I know I have it, and I can't. The other thing, people, that you guys can do too is don't forget every one of these agencies that are going against you have a board. There's no reason that you can't go ahead and write a complaint against your caseworkers, the judges, anybody that is in a committee or in a unit or whatever. These are things that I forget about all the time. I was just looking through this and I'm like, oh, yeah, the professional licensing board, like all of these things. So make sure that you look into this stuff and you know what? File complaints. Be loud as you can. Now, I know that it's not wise to go up against them while you have a case going on. Don't make podcasts. Don't make. I have a podcast out there. You guys should check it out. It's on Spotify. It's called That's Our Daughter. It's about 32 episodes of the way that it went down while I was in my case and up to the TPR and so on. That's what started their real rampage of me when they started really putting the forks in me because I was telling the truth about them. And then they lied about that. They lied about what I said in the podcast at my trial. Saying I said all kinds of bad things about them. Never used them by name. I never did anything about like that. But they still use those things against me. So like Mr. Davis says, and like everybody, it's not wise to go ahead and try to make a bunch of noise, try to win your kids back first, then get into that hanky-panky stuff and go fight that way, by exposing and all of that, because you don't want them to grip your kids tighter.
Well, and if you have an attorney that's absolutely doing nothing, state it on record at your hearing. Say, Your Honor, I'd like to request another attorney. Don't exactly call him a lazy bum, but bring your proof. Put it on record. That way, when that record goes to the appellate court, if you're appealing something, they can see, oh, wait a minute, there was some counsel issues. Anything.
Anything. Yeah, so there's a lot of
and
things.
if you're going to file a complaint against a judge for abuse of power, go through every judicial committee has a section where complaints have been filed, and you can go back and you could read other complaints that fall under the similar type situation. And I actually had a very smart attorney here in Alabama tell me, he says, Melissa, your judge is abusing his power. What you need to do, he says, go to our JIC board. He says, look up complaints, find complaints that match your situation. Try to word it the same way, because those complaints held weight. If you match those complaints and your complaint's the same, then your complaint will hold weight. So, always research. Don't just head in there blindly, because when you do a judicial complaint, you turn it in, they get to review it. If they find it to be a matter of fact that there is something there to investigate, then they turn it over to your state attorney general's office for further investigation. But between part A and part B, the judge is going to get a copy of it. Therefore, you need to make sure you asked him to recuse right around the same time. And if he refuses to recuse, then a motion to disqualify. Because being that you just, as far as he's concerned, slandered him to the world, you don't exactly want him sitting on your next, bring the kids home visit.
Right. Here's a couple of things I just found that I we're talking about case law and everything. The absence of harm element eliminates state's interest. That's Rideout versus Randu. Scrutiny of fundamental rights. Safety or imminent danger is not a sine qua non for the existence of a compelling state interest. Something more than the best interest of a child must be at stake in order for the state to have a compelling interest. And the right of the family to stay together without coercive powers of the state, Morris versus Dearborn. All of these things, guys, are case laws that you can look up and, let your attorneys know, hey, look, I found this stuff. See if it can apply to you. I know it's more or less, the case law stuff is more or less used in the appeals process. But look, these things have been ruled on, and rules and laws and things have been made to make you aware of what's going on and what these laws and statutes are. And there's so many of them that your attorney may not know. So, guys, pay attention to this stuff. Do your own research. Read, learn, educate. Get in discussion groups. Come talk with us. Whatever you guys got to do. If you want to email me, info.
And I was going to say, if anyone wants to send an email, if Grace puts up an email for us, they can email questions in.
Yeah, you can get me at info@abolishcps.com. And if I don't know if Melissa has email, but if she doesn't, you can go ahead and send her emails there. I'll be sure that she gets them. I don't know if you have an email that you post yet, Melissa, or not.
Yeah, mhservices@gmail.com.
Okay. So there you go. That's how you guys can get a hold of us. I think that we
Grace put up the main email too.
Okay, perfect. Grace, you are the best. Get a hold of Grace, and
we'd be so lost without her.
Yep, we sure would. That being said, Grace, get us out of here. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you all tomorrow.
Good night.
For trenches and all that good stuff. And we'll be back. Be good, be loyal, kick some CPS ass.